Hey everybody.
Fatbird Finds here.
I'm Mary Beth.
And I'm Laura.
And I'm Nikki.
How's it going? Welcome back to the Mad Men podcast. We're really glad that you're here.
We've had a little break.
We've had a break, and if you're watching this out in podcast land, I do want to say that we have a new channel on YouTube called Fatbird Finds Podcast. So our mother channel, Fatbird Finds, is where all of our thrifting content is, and our other podcast. So this is the actual very first podcast that we're putting onto YouTube on this new channel. You can find all of our backlogged episodes as well from Frankenstein and the first 4 episodes of Mad Men here, but this is the actual first one that we're doing in real time. Mm-hmm. So that's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yes. So don't forget to go out there and find us, Fatbird Finds, our mother channel, and then Fatbird Finds Podcast. We appreciate it. Shall we get right into it?
We got to. It takes us a whole hour to talk about it.
It does. Okay. So this episode is episode 5 of Mad Men. 5G is the title.
Mm-hmm. With whole tons of meaning.
Yes.
To 5G.
Yes.
All the way through.
We'll get into that in a little bit, but absolutely. Okay, so our first scene in Mad Men, this episode, we are entered into Dawn and Betty's bedroom. They're coming in. Yeah. They are extremely glamorous looking. They've come from what it appears like a party, and they're talking about an award that Sterling Cooper has won. So they call it a Nuki Award that they've won, and Dawn is all like, no one wants to look like they care about awards, but Betty's like, but you do, so go ahead.
This is just one of my favorite scenes. I just visually, it's just one of my favorites. And they're never playful like this. So they're like tipsy.
Oh, they're so drunk.
They're very drunk.
And they're so playful and lovey and gorgeous. It's just adorable.
Yes. And so I don't think a Nuki Award is a real thing. We've tried to look it up, but we can't find it. So just so you know, we think it's a made-up thing for this show. Anybody have anything to add to that?
No, I concur.
No, yeah, but you get the idea that they're in Texas and so dressed up. It's in this world, it's a very important thing. Like everybody in this world knows about it. Like they ask him about it the next day.
Right.
It's a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But my favorite part of this scene is they go to sleep in their clothes. This bedspread, they're like on top of it, and it's like making this god awful sound, like their clothes against that fabric. It's horrible. And he cannot even be bothered to lean over and touch that lamp to turn it off. So he like reaches down and unplugs it from the wall. That's how drunk and just utterly exhausted that they are. So I just think that's really funny. So the next morning, they wake up and it's the opposite of glamorous.
Yeah.
So they are just so rough. Oh my gosh, they're so rough. They're coughing. Betty looks like she's gonna puke. He's just, it's really just really funny. Mm-hmm. I really like that scene. And
they've overslept. It's 8:00, and
yep.
The maid is downstairs already, and the kids are up, and so.
Yeah.
Man, I don't miss those days. Like of being a smoker hungover. That's the worst.
Oh, yeah, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, that's the worst.
So Don goes into the bathroom, and when he shuts the door behind him, the award that's on the dresser there, originally that's a horseshoe up, and when he slams the door, that horseshoe like swings down like a pendulum.
That's got to be a bad omen.
Yeah, I think a horseshoe up above a doorway is supposed to be good luck.
Yeah.
Correct.
Isn't that right?
Yes.
So I think that that's just a bad omen of something that's brewing.
Or that things are not as glamorous as they seem on the surface.
Exactly.
Like the night before.
You don't get much, more obvious than that.
Right.
All right, so then we go into the office the next day. They're in Dawn's office, and Ken is really excited because he has had a short story published.
Ken.
In the
Kenny Cosgrove.
In the Atlantic. So the title of his story is called "Tapping a Maple on a Cold Vermont Morning." I'm sure that means something as well, but at the moment I can't put a finger on it.
Well, I don't know that we have to read too much into that. I think that's just what he wrote a story about.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't. I don't think there's that much there.
Okay.
I mean,
Maybe
what
not.
what would you suggest?
I don't know. That's why I said I can't put my finger on it. Maybe our commenters can let us know what they think about that. So they're getting ready. So don't forget this, because this comes into play later. The whole fact that
What about this fine print? Have you read that?
no
He, a graduate of Columbia, has lived in the New York
area for most of his life.
working for the advertising firm Sterling Cooper. Puts Mr. Cosgrove in a
Unique position.
to observe and study the trends that shape America today. This is his first
Story to appear.
in the Atlantic. So he is in a unique position to observe and study the trends that shape America today. What does that have to do with tapping a maple on a cold Vermont morning?
I don't know. Good question.
Maybe there is more here.
But it's important to emphasize that the guys are really jealous about this.
Yeah, everybody's in a tizzy in the office. And,
Well, they're just like wild-eyed. They're like, you got a what
well,
published?
and you're a writer, because he's not one of the creatives.
Yeah, he's an
in the
account man.
office. Yeah, he's an account guy, and so the creatives, that their hearts are broken because they should be the ones succeeding with getting their work published. And,
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway.
So now we get into the meat, sort of what this the theme of this episode comes to be. So it's the Liberty Capital meeting. So they're trying to write tags for Liberty Capital, and I think that Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're talking about how women, usually these ads are directed toward women to try to get women to come into the banks, and they're not really wanting to do that. They're wanting to go more after the men because it's not really being done.
That's correct.
So Paul is spitballing, and he's like, they need accounts that are private. The statements come to the office, not at the home. It's private, private accounts. And then Dawn, with his smug look, I love that look. He's like, no, Liberty Capital. What does he say?
No, Laura, you do it.
No,
You've got the good voice.
No,
you've got the good voice for radio. Executive
account. And Paul's like, yep, that's why you make the big bucks around here.
That's how you get the big bucks.
So anyway, this whole episode, the theme really revolves around privacy, and you hear that word private.
You hear it 6 times. I counted.
The word private occurs 6 times. Now,
Really, a step further than that, it's about secrets.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're
and
coming
keeping
to that.
secrets from your family.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're right. So speaking of secrets, Peggy buzzes Dawn in his office, and she says that he has a call from who, Laura?
Okay. She says she has a call from Bix Beaterdeck.
Beaterbeck.
Beaterbeck.
And
it's a tongue twister.
Yeah.
I've said it different every time.
I bet it's a tongue twister.
And he's perplexed, and he's like, he answers the phone, he's like, Mr. Beaterbeck? And lo and behold, it's actually Midge. So
I don't know how Peggy thought that Midge was Bix Beaterbeck.
well, I mean, she was pretending to be a secretary.
Oh, true. I
Yeah.
guess so.
And so
So
Dawn's
who is
like,
Bix Beaterbeck?
Dawn's
Laura?
like, who's Beaterbeck?
Yeah.
And so Laura looked it up. He's a real person.
Yeah, he's a real person. He was a super famous jazz musician from the 20s. That's
Okay.
when he was the most popular, in the 20s. He was famous for playing the cornet, and he was a pianist as well.
Oh.
But I think the one little interesting thing was he was, let's see, someone described his style. Let's see. He had a lyrical approach and purity of tone with such clarity of sound that one person described it as shooting bullets at a bell.
Well, all right.
I thought that was
My
interesting.
gosh. Yeah.
Goodness.
And so, do you remember
So
what?
he was famous, you know. He
Yeah.
was just,
And so, why did she choose that name?
Because he's the trumpet player, and she wanted to do a bit of horn playing herself.
Yeah.
So that's quite scandalous. So speaking of Scandalized,
Poor Peggy.
Midge obviously is calling for a booty call, and Peggy accidentally picks up the phone. And here's what they're talking about. And Peggy is scandalized. She's just like, can't believe what's happening. So little sweet innocent Peggy, you know, in the big city, she's just not used to hearing things like this. So anyway, it's really funny. She just has this great look on her face. Oh, and if you're looking out there, if you're listening in podcast land, don't forget that if you watch on YouTube, we do show screenshots from the episode. So that's what we're doing right now. That we're referring to some screenshots. So you might interest yourself in coming over to YouTube and doing that so that you can follow the screenshots along as well.
I was just going to add here that Midge was really laying it on thick, so to speak. She just got a phone. So Dawn, she really surprised him. Like, not only did she say she was somebody else, but I mean, she didn't even have a phone. So
Right.
she would be the last person he would expect to call him at work.
Right.
And then she made all these sexy references.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the end, just actually came out when Peggy heard her on the phone, actually came out and said, just come over here and ravish me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean.
And so he does. So
she was really
he gets
doing
up.
it.
He gets up. He's like, Peggy, I'm going to lunch. I'll be back. And so she's just
I'm
like,
out.
she's just like, okay. and he leaves. So there's a quick scene that I don't have a screenshot of, but I want to just mention real briefly, where you get a quick cut to some of the boys in Pete's office, and they're just bitching about Ken Cosgrove.
Well, there's a key quote from there that I wanted to mention.
Okay.
Pete sits down at his desk in a huff, and he's just exasperated and disgusted with Ken, and he's like, who the hell is Ken Cosgrove?
yes,
you know.
yes,
And that's important because it bookends, it repeats later on. There's another scene where somebody says the same thing about Dawn. Who is Dawn Draper? And it kind of goes to the theme that Laura talked about of the episode being secrecy, their secret lives. Ken Cosgrove had this secret life that no one knew about, where he was writing stories. He was a secret writer. Who the hell is Ken Cosgrove? We thought we knew, but we didn't. And the same thing is true about Dawn Draper.
That's right. And that reminds me, so in the scope of this podcast, we like to pick out our favorite quote from the show, and then at the end we like to rename the episode. So what would we rename the episode if we could? So I forgot my favorite quote at the beginning in that scene where Ken is telling them that they're being published, and Pete comes out with a thing like that.
Yeah.
And he says that a ton during the series of the show. So
Yeah, it's
I
like
think
his-
that's the first time he says it.
It might be. It's his tagline throughout the whole
A
thing.
thing like that. So anyway, I did forget to mention that. So don't forget to put your favorite quote or what you would rename the episode in the comments below. All right, so now we're at Midge's apartment. They're just in the throes of you know what. And they look very comfy. They're in her little studio apartment.
By the way, this is the scene that my favorite quote is in.
Okay.
So let's continue. It just popped into my head. I knew it would.
All right, well, why don't you take this part away, Laura?
Oh, that's okay. I didn't mean to stop your story.
No. Why don't you talk about this scene?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, they're just, lounging around. I think that we are led to believe that when he gets there, they are straight to business. And now they're just lounging.
Straight to the horn playing.
Yeah. And now they're just lounging around talking. You can see the phone really well in your screenshot there.
Yep.
This is her first day for a telephone. Her first day for a TV was last time we talked, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so they're talking, and she's like, they're just talking about. For some reason, she says, "I'm sorry that you're always in a million pieces." I think is what she says. He's like,
Well, I mean, he says
he never has it all
You can't
together.
call me at work.
Is that how
what starts
is how
it.
they start the whole conversation?
Yeah. He's
Okay.
like, you can't call me at work.
Yeah, and he just crushes her because, like I said, she has set up this whole big, sexy booty call, first time ever, and she's had her clever person and her clever, horn playing and all that kind of stuff. And so she's like, are you kidding me? So you're gonna wait? You're gonna come in,
Wait till we have sex and then
have
tell
sex,
me?
and then yell at me chastise me for calling you at work. She's like crushed by that, and then he's upset. He goes, "Oh, I've hurt your feelings." You think?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really bad. And then, yeah, but that was the quote that I like from this one is that she goes on from there and says, she describes how he comes to her after a hard day and this, that, and the other. And she says, "I love to be your medicine."
Yeah.
So she understands her assignment, so to speak, but she doesn't like being chastised
But
by
she's
him.
also referring to the fact that he sort of turns it on and off. You know, when he comes there, he's a different person than when he's at work, and then when he's at home. And he's like, says a great line that he says later in the series too. He goes, "I don't even think about it."
Mm-hmm.
Which
I was going to mention that. Yep.
That's a big part of him. He doesn't think about it.
He's such a good liar, and he later on in the show he talks. Somebody else has caught him in a lie or something. How do you do that so well? How do you lie like that? He doesn't even think about it. It's become he's got two different people inside of him, and he just turns one off and turns the other one on, and he's just an expert.
He just has those narcissistic or sociopathic tendencies, and he doesn't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So then, after that scene, we cut to a scene where Trudy and Pete are in bed together. So, Nikki, I think I'll let you talk about this scene.
So, looky here. We've got, what does this look like to you? I mean, it's pretty obvious. I think it's pretty blunt that here's Pete. His pajamas are a little ridiculous. They're not really a grown man's, especially a successful man, a wealthy man, pajamas you'd expect them to wear. These are like flannel. They have some kind of design on them. It looks like a little kid's pajamas. And then here he is. He's got some cookies and milk next to the bed that he's eating, and those are like Fig Newtons and a glass of milk. And I just think that, I mean, that's what a little kid would be eating, like his little Fig Newtons and milk.
And it's like his mommy's there reading him a bedtime story.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's like hits you over the head with this concept that Pete is just a little boy, you know, pretending to be a man. He's never really, he's not very mature, and he's not the man he hopes to be, which is what we're going to get into in this episode, or in this scene of this episode. Because remember, last episode was all about Pete and his identity crisis, because he's inherited a name that he doesn't feel like he has earned himself. Like he's standing on the shoulders of all of his relatives who have this name.
Right.
So he's trying to find his place and make his mark. And here he is. He's just a little boy in bed eating his cookies and milk. And he's mad about Ken having his story published, because lo and behold, Pete has written a story too.
So we find out he's been writing a story as well.
He wants to be famous. He's jealous that Ken's famous. He's like, why am I not famous? You know.
So Trudy's being nice. She's like, well, it's pretty good. And he's like, no, tell me what you thought. And she's like, oh, I don't really get it. And then we find out that it's about a hunter and a bear, and she believes that the bear is talking in the story. And Pete says this quote where he says, it's not that the bear is talking, it's what the hunter imagines the bear to be thinking. So I want you to remember that Pete has been writing this story about this hunter. In the next episode or two, I'm not sure if it's the next episode or two away, but the hunting thing comes back. So I want you guys to remember that he's been writing this story about a hunter. And so the fact that Trudy doesn't really enjoy the story, he kind of takes that as a compliment, because it's sort of modern.
Yeah. I mean, Trudy is so simple and, you know, uneducated and not a man's sensibility, and a woman, you know.
Right.
So if she doesn't get it, that's great.
Yes. And then we find out that
but she's like, well, you know, I really usually read the classics, honey.
Yeah.
So, but he, of course, really wants his story to be published too, because Ken has been. So now we find out that Trudy's ex-boyfriend, Charlie Fittich, is in the publishing industry. And Pete wants Trudy to talk to Charlie to try to get Pete's story published. And Trudy's like, honey, I'm shocked. Why would you want me to talk to him? You know, he was my first. You know, when you found out about that, you were really mad. And he says something like, well, this makes up for that.
Yeah.
He's just
and
such
I mean,
a
and
little
she's like,
shit.
I don't even know why you're not even a writer.
Yeah.
Peter is what she calls
I
him.
thought this was a hobby.
Peter.
Yep.
So we find out he's just a little snake, but I can't help but really like him.
Yeah.
I don't like him.
At all?
No, I don't like
not
Pete.
even as the series goes on?
No, I don't. I don't like him.
Oh, I really like Pete.
They make him, you know, kind of likable. Like you can you sympathize with him a little bit. He's
I like
bit,
all the characters,
a little bit sympathetic because he's tragically flawed or something. You kind of feel sorry for him. I don't know.
Okay, so the next morning comes along, and we're back in the office. Peggy, I think, is still scandalized. So when she greets Dawn, she doesn't really say anything. He's handing her his stuff, and he just kind of looks at her and goes, "Good morning," because she's like just saying nothing, and she's like, "Oh, good morning," because she's still got all that on her mind.
Well, yeah, she can't stop thinking about it, and she's seeing him, for the first time after the event, and she's just like, oh my gosh, this man who I idolized as my boss is actually, a scoundrel. Anyway.
Yeah, you guys disagreed with me. I think she was being super judgy. I think she was being passive aggressive. I think she on purpose didn't say good morning.
Interesting.
Dawn. She wouldn't have called it Dawn.
So on a scale of judgmental versus scandalized, do you think she's leaning more toward judgmental?
That's correct.
Okay. Interesting.
I just think she has that in her. And it comes out every once in a while. She's not that naive, surely. I think it's coming out judgy.
I doubt that in her character in this time and this position would have any experience with a man who's having an affair. Like, I bet she doesn't know of any men who've had affairs, because everybody pretends to be happily married.
Well, that wouldn't keep her from being judgy.
Yeah, but it wouldn't keep her from being scandalized either.
I didn't say she wasn't scandalized.
I think she's both.
Yeah.
Okay, so next scene, I'm going to talk about this real briefly, and then we're going to take a quick break before we get into the meat of it. So in the next scene, Dawn goes straight away to a meeting where they're talking about the status of accounts. And Peggy comes in, and she's like, "I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Draper. You've got someone at reception." And she says his name is Adam Whitman. The music changes. We've got this really pensive music happening. Dawn obviously is just nerves written all over his body. He looks down, he looks up, he doesn't really know what to do. And finally he says, "Where is he?" And she's like, "He's in reception." And he looks down again. He goes, "I've got to go deal with this." So we've got a big bump moment about to happen. So before
it takes a lot to fluster him. He doesn't easily fluster. He's walked into meetings before where he's not even been prepared.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into the meat of what's about to happen, let's take a quick break.
Oh.
Okay, so Dawn goes to reception. He sees this guy that's standing there. The guy turns around to see Dawn. We see Dawn from the back. I feel like some of the biggest things always happen when we see Dawn from the back. We see this guy standing there, and Dawn's like, "Can I help you?" And this guy's like, "Dick, it's you. It's me, Adam." And Dawn's like, Are you sure? I don't know who you are. It's very awkward. And if you guys remember, a few episodes ago, we, on the train, when Dawn was, I believe, either going to work or going home, there was a man on the train who came up to him and was like, Richard Whitman? I haven't seen you, whatever, since forever.
Yeah.
And so that was our first clue that something's up. Now we've got a big clue here.
Yeah, a second person is calling him Dick or Richard Whitman.
Yeah, and he's like, "Dick, it's me. It's Adam, your little brother." And we're just like, what? What? Who is this guy?
And look at him. He looks fresh off the farm, man.
Yeah, he looks just like Opie.
Yeah, he really does.
Yeah.
They cast him really well, I think. I read in our Mad Men companion that it looks very... Norman Rockwell, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so Dawn just continues to insist that he doesn't know this guy and that he is Don Draper and not Dick Whitman. And so we're kind of like, what's really going on here? Because, is this kid crazy? What's going on?
Yeah, so Dawn, shuffles him out into the lobby, and he's like, "Listen, we can't do this here, basically. You gotta go. I'm not who you think I am." And he's like, "I get it. You're at work, whatever." And so finally Dawn says, "There's a cafe a few blocks away. Meet me there at noon." And he goes, "That's swell."
That's swell.
Adam's like, "That's swell." He's so excited. So Dawn goes back to the meeting. He sits down. He's just got this horrible
look of horror.
countenance.
Yeah.
It's awful, and he's just like waiting for this meeting to be over. He keeps looking at his watch. It's just horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
So then the meeting ends finally, and I think somebody wanted me to talk about these ashtrays.
Well, I just wanted this screenshot because I thought these ashtrays were really cool, and we always try to like each of us pick a decor item from the episode to talk about, you know, that's really MCM and cool. And this was my item. I don't have anything to say about it because I could not find any reference to it anywhere. I looked at pictures, all kinds of pictures of ashtrays, and never saw these, but I love it because it's like an egg dome looking thing. There's all these multiple holes all the way around it, and so it's just holding like this huge enclosed container of ashes and cigarettes. And anyway, it just looks like a spaceship or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is, the meeting's over. It's lunchtime again because he said that he would meet Adam at noon. I think noon.
Mm-hmm.
And so as that meeting is over, Dawn just runs out. He just like runs out the door, and you see a shot of Peggy like watching him. It like the camera like pans behind Peggy as he's walking out the door, and then it shows her face, and she's just like,
he's going again to see that woman.
there he goes again.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening?
Yeah.
And
This secret man with his private life.
Yep. So lo and behold, though, he's going to meet Adam at the diner.
Mm-hmm.
So they come in. Adam is super stoked to see him. And I want to talk about the song that's playing when he comes in. So there's a song on the radio when Dawn walks in, and the song is called You by the Aquatones. And I want to just read the lyrics of that song real quick. My darling, I'm lonely now that you're gone. Please come back to me. You are the answer to my prayer. I want to love you, and I swear to live my life with one desire, you. I believed the sweet things that you said. You lied to me, and instead you broke my heart. You, yes, you. My darling, come back and stay with me. I live just for you. We'll be so happy together. Please come back to me. It isn't right. You'll never know. I'm so sad. Why did you go? You broke my heart. You, yes, you. So, I mean,
if you ever hear the lyrics of a song in this show, you should pay close attention because they all do that. They all really relate to what's happening in the moment.
There can be no accidents when you're a director creating a show.
Right.
I mean, you have to say, well, this scene needs some background music. What should it be? And you've got infinite number of songs that you could pick from.
I bet somebody's job is that, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I bet somebody's just whole job for the movie is just to pick out the music that matches the...
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So they sit down together. Dawn obviously is just incredibly nervous looking. Adam is just beside himself. He's so excited. He's so happy to see Dawn/Dick.
Mm-hmm.
But Dawn is so reluctant to give over any emotion or any information. Adam says things like, where have you been all this time? You know, what have you been doing? And he's like, well, I've been here mostly.
And then Adam also says, who is Dawn Draper?
Who is Donald Draper?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my actual name for the episode. That we'll talk about that later. But he says the quote, "Who is Donald Draper?" And they just talk about random things like
family members who are dead,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we learn that this guy has a mother who is dead, and Dawn says, well, she wasn't my mother. He's glad. He says he's glad that she's dead. And Uncle Mac is dead, whoever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're trying to reminisce, or Adam's trying to reminisce, but Dawn is reluctant. And every time you think that Dawn is about to, give over to this reunion and be a normal person, he keeps cutting Adam off and closing him down. And
yeah,
but he does get a little bit out of him. I thought to myself when it was happening, I thought, well, thank God he's at least gonna say something, because Adam says, gosh, didn't you even miss me? And he said, well, yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I want to talk about that.
Okay.
That part in just a second.
Okay.
But I forgot to mention this part. The reason that Adam found Dawn is because he's a janitor at the Empire State Building, and he found in the garbage a picture of Dawn and Roger receiving that Nuki award.
Yeah.
And so he says a line. He's like, I found this in the trash and I thought I saw a ghost. So Adam has thought that Dick has been dead all this time since he was a kid, because he says to Dawn also, he goes, I grew up tall. So we're led to believe that the last time that Dawn saw him, he was a small person. So I want to talk about that scene that Laura just mentioned. So Adam says a line. He says, did you miss me at all? And at this moment, if you're looking on YouTube, Dawn breaks his facade. He breaks a little bit and he goes, of course I did. You know,
Yeah, look at those eyes.
His eyes are like sparkly in that moment, and he breaks and he's like, of course I did. And you see that emotion come through.
Wow, that's a great representation of that.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on that
No.
line for you by saying that early, but that's really awesome.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But it's heartbreaking in that moment, because Dawn is so hard, so harsh, and Adam is so happy and just wants that love and attention, and for Dawn to break in that moment, it's just sort of heartbreaking. So we have a couple more scenes that occur during the time that Dawn and Adam are talking. So we cut to a scene where Trudy goes to see Charlie Fittich, her ex-boyfriend, to see if he can get Pete published. Here's my item of the episode that I wanted to highlight, that green vase that you're seeing there in the background. When I saw that, I immediately thought of Blinko. Now, I looked at every catalog on the Blinko website, which is 1953 through the 80s, and I did not find that vase anywhere. I saw one that was extremely similar, but it didn't look exactly right. So, all of my investigators out there, if you know what that vase is, if you know the maker, the year, the style, anything like that, be sure that you put that in the comments. I would love to know.
Please keep in mind that those are the curtains that you're seeing through the vase. Like, that will throw you off for a second if you think it's ridges or whatever in the vase. I think the vase is completely smooth.
And if you're curious about why we're talking about items in the background, Fatbird Finds, our mother channel, is a reselling channel. So we collect and resell vintage collectibles, especially vintage glass. So yeah, that's why we try to point those things out in the background.
And if anybody has any knowledge of those ashtrays that I noticed, that I liked, please say something in the comments and tell me what those are.
Definitely. Absolutely. So anyway, Charlie and Trudy are talking. Trudy's trying to be, it's so nice to see you. I was wondering if you could try to get Pete published. And meanwhile, he's like, I just want to be with you. I still love you.
Be with you.
And Trudy's like, oh, isn't that so nice? And he's like, basically, I know you're married. I get that, but can't we can just do stuff. And Trudy's like, we can't really do that. And she's like, maybe in another life, one day,
like in a movie
when we're old.
And he says, this is my quote of the episode, he says, I don't want you old, I want you now.
I don't want you old.
Or no, he said, I want you now, I don't want you old.
And the way he says it, it's so funny.
Yeah.
So that's a great quote, Nikki.
Yeah.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's just a really awkward conversation.
Well, yeah, and then my whole title of the episode is in this scene.
Okay.
Are we going to hold him to the end?
No, go for it.
Oh, okay. Well, because when you're talking about he's trying to convince her, he's like, I realize you're married, Trudy, but I love you. I still love you. We can still do stuff. We don't have to be together forever. And he goes, I can keep a secret. Yeah.
I can keep a secret.
And I think that could be said in almost every scene of this particular episode. Mm-hmm. You could fit that in somewhere. So yeah. I think that's a good name.
Yeah, the whole theme: secrecy, privacy, double life.
Yeah,
it's all there. So, also another scene that happens while Dawn and Adam are at the diner. We see Betty with the kids, come into the office.
Look how adorable that is.
They're very cute.
It looks like a catalog.
Come on, it does.
Peggy looks horrified, And she's like, oh, Mrs. Draper, you guys were supposed to take your family portrait today. And she's like, oh, silly me. I forgot to remind
Dawn.
Mr. Draper.
Yeah.
He's out. Why don't you guys wait in his office? So...
and then she panics. Peggy starts panicking, and there's this great shot. This great, like camera following her shot of her running around the office, like looking scared.
Like, she'll go in one direction, and then she'll go back in another direction.
It looked like modern dance, actually, because she would run up to the camera, and then she'd stop, and then she'd run back. Then she'd zig, and then she'd zag, and she'd stop, and she'd run, and she's looking around because she doesn't know what to do, how to tell this lie, how to deal with it, and so she's looking for Joan.
Because remember, she thinks that Dawn is out playing the horn with that
like
woman.
in the horn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she goes and finds Joan,
Uh-huh.
who is talking to some other women in the break room, and she pulls Joan by the arm. She's like, Joan, come in here. And she's like, don't touch me.
Don't touch
Get
me.
off me. So I love that. I love Joan so much.
Uh-huh.
I know people hate Joan. But
Who hates Joan?
Erica hates Joan.
Oh, God.
I think that
Yeah.
Joan, the actress, Christina, what's her last name?
Christina Hendricks.
I think she made Joan what she is.
Oh,
like, I
for
think
sure.
she molded her character with her own personality that she put to it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Joan was always intended to be exactly the way that she comes off in
Maybe
these
not.
episodes.
Yeah.
But it's great.
Maybe not. So then you have this big scene of Peggy, like, just rambling. She's like, I don't know what to do, Mrs. Draper. They're in their office, and they were supposed to take their family portrait today. And if I tell her that he's somewhere else, then maybe he'll be caught in his lie. And I don't want Dawn to know that I know where he is. And she's like, where is he? and she's like, I don't know, whatever. I don't know where he is. And she goes, you do know. And you're going to tell me, or I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And so Peggy says this great line. She's like, he sees this woman the other day. He saw her, and he came back all greasy and calm.
Oh, that's great.
So I feel like greasy and calm could also be the name of the
Oh,
episode.
that would be a interesting name of the episode.
And so then Joan is like, Peggy, you're making this way harder than it needs to be. Just go in there, entertain Betty and the brats, and tell her that he went out and you don't know where he is.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. And Peggy's like, yeah, that's probably what I would have done anyway.
Yeah, that's what she said it just like that. She's like, yeah, I think that's what I would have done anyway.
And then
Really funny.
And then she is mortified because she's like, oh, God, I shouldn't have told you that. And Joan's like, yeah, you shouldn't have told anybody that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell anybody, but you shouldn't have told anybody that. So that's Joan's way of saying I can keep a secret.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think you could go back for every single separate scene and get that.
Yep. So we cut back to Dawn and Adam at the diner, and they have a brief conversation before that scene ends. He says, I think in this particular part, who is Donald Draper? And Dawn's like, people change their names. Don't worry about it. Adam's pressing for more, and finally Dawn just is like, you know what, I'm leaving.
Well, there's something that precipitates finally Dawn ending this and like getting up. Adam says, who is Donald Draper? Are you married? Do you have kids?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden Dawn's like, oh crap, he remembers what he has to lose and,
Yes.
and what he's protecting. It's not just his new career as an ad man or his new name or his money. He needs to protect the life he's built, his family. He doesn't want to lose his family, and he knows, and we know, but because we've seen the whole thing, that he has a lot to lose and that he has a legitimate reason to fear that he could lose his entire family.
Right. So when the family comes up, he gets up and he's like, I'm leaving. I'm not going to pay for your lunch because this never happened.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know you. This never happened. I don't want to ever see you again.
Yep. And
basically.
he leaves.
So you were like, if you're a person watching this for the first time, you're like, why is he so cold? What's wrong with this guy? This is crazy. Well, after a few seasons of this show, you realize, he probably had reason to be that scared.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
All right, let's take another quick break, and we'll finish the rest of the episode when we come back. So we get back to the office. Don's come back from his secret lunch. He comes in and he sees Betty and the kids and he's like, oh God, I forgot.
Yeah, there it is.
And poor Peggy, she's like, Mr. Draper, I'm so sorry. I forgot to remind you about your portrait. And he's like, never mind. It's okay. I forgot to check in with you before I went to the printer.
Mm-hmm.
And so
He was smooth, man.
I feel like the printer in upcoming episodes is like code for I'm going to have sex.
Yeah.
I got to go to the printer. So that's funny. But anyway, she's like super apologetic, just falling all over herself, trying to apologize.
His face there is cracking me up.
And he's just like, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. So you guys, if you want to say anything about that, I've like lost my place.
No.
I thought it was odd. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I know.
I just thought, the only thing I was going to say is I thought it was odd that he did say, oh, it's okay, Peggy. I mean,
He said it's my fault.
Yeah.
It's okay.
yeah, I just thought that was odd. It just seemed like not the first thing that would come out of his mouth.
Yeah.
To me, I just, I could imagine him yelling at her,
True. But the next scene that you see is at Betty's house, and she and her friend Francine, pregnant and smoking, are looking through the pictures that they had done, and they're not good. They're the kids are making faces, and they're not situated very well. Like they're just not framed well. And she's like, "This is really awful. I think I'm gonna have to redo him again because Sally looks fat." And just awful things that she says.
And Don looks terrible. He looks ridiculously unhappy in a couple of those.
Oh yeah, he's just got this awful look on his face. But Francine's trying to be nice. Well, at least you're not in Helen Bishop's family photo.
Yeah.
There's a big hole there.
Yeah.
And so they're always finding a way to cut down Helen Bishop, the divorcee, down the road. So let's just go ahead and cut to the next scene. This is the Liberty Capital pitch. So at the beginning of the episode, we were talking about ideas for the Liberty Capital campaign. The private account or the executive account. So in this meeting, I think it's really interesting. Dawn does not take the reins of this meeting. Pete says, I think Dawn, this is your time. What do you got? And he goes, I think Paul's got a handle on this. And he hands it off to Paul, which is unexpected. Dawn hardly ever does that, which I think is interesting.
I don't remember him, ever doing it.
But I think it's important. I think it's important because I think in Dawn's mind, he has got so much on his mind right now that he can't even deal.
Well, I think you're right.
It's also important from a storytelling director's perspective. I think it is a logistical move because the director needs us to see Dawn's reaction to the conversation.
Correct.
And we can't see Dawn's reaction and therefore the thoughts he's having if he's the one pitching. So we have to see Dawn hear the pitch and hear the client's reaction because Dawn has this look, like you just saw. He looks a little disgusted or, just a little put off by how everybody is really just so cheery about this idea of hiding your secret life.
Yeah.
They're making a big joke out of it. That's what it is. They're making light of it. Oh, yeah, it's so fun to have a private life. You're going to have the statement sent to the office and you got to keep your life organized so your family doesn't find out. And they just think it's such a cool idea.
And the client says, so many of our clients are already doing this. We just didn't have a way to charge them for it. And he starts laughing. And Dawn's like,
it's not just funny. This is serious business. It's hard to hide your private life.
Which is interesting because, Dawn is the most secretive, most scandalous person in the whole show. The things that you'll find out later, it's just like, how can he have room to judge this guy? It's very interesting. But in this moment, I think he has so much love for Adam, just coming off that lunch with Adam, and he wanted, I think, to reach out and embrace Adam and welcome Adam into his life, invite him to come see his kids and his wife, but he can't.
Or, you're right, yes, of course, but also, we're seeing that Don's thinking to himself, this guy doesn't get it. He doesn't know how tragic and heart-wrenching it is to live a lie.
Maybe so.
Because Don's feeling that right now. He's like, what's wrong with you that you think this is a glamorous way to live? It's really just a tragedy to live this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of the irony of Don as a character is that really he's so BA at work. Like, he's the head of the, he's like the head of the show around there, idolized by everybody. And like you said, he has the most scandalous secret life probably of anybody there. But he doesn't kid around about it.
Yeah.
Like all these jerks, Paul and all the little hoodlums are obscene to women. They, they take advantage of all the women in the office, and they're rude and ridiculous and make lewd comments all the time, demeaning comments. Just like I said with Peggy, you never see Don do that. He never, ever does that. Even though he goes and sleeps with somebody after he leaves the office, he never does that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think it's super, I think I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's obviously not respect, but it's something. There's something there.
So I've thrown up a screenshot on the screen here, and it's everybody in the meeting at this meeting at the table. Most everybody around is happy looking, joyful. Don is sat back in his chair, and he's just sort of staring almost toward the camera. He's almost breaking the fourth wall here. And in the forefront of the picture, you see an empty chair. Now, I think that this is super important because, if you're in a household and you sit at dinner, Laura,
yes.
Where does the man and the wife sit at the table?
Opposite ends.
Opposite ends.
They have host and hostess chairs.
Exactly.
In the dining room seats.
Actually, you would have the male guest sit at the other head.
Is that right?
I think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think there's ever a woman at the head.
I think that typically you have your man and woman at the opposite ends of the table.
Okay, well,
I might be wrong about that. Maybe I am. But I feel like in this scene, Dawn's looking toward this chair or toward us, the camera, and it's empty. So there's something about his life that is not fulfilled.
That's very good.
Thank you.
It is really good. And also, when they're always showing Dawn from the back, then it's really different when they show him from the front.
Yeah.
And there's nothing.
So
nobody's sitting with the back to them.
Don wants his family and his life to be fulfilled, but it's just not a possibility.
Don's looking out, and no one's looking back at Dawn.
Yep.
There's no one in that seat to see Dawn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he goes back to his desk. Peggy hands him some mail. I think she says, "I opened all of it except this one," and it was on top. And what does it say, Nikki?
It says private, Donald, spelled wrong, Donald Draper, Sterling Cooper Advertising.
It is spelled wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that before. Yeah. That's interesting. But there's that word private again. He goes into his...
Yes, because
that was my fault. Hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. He goes into his office, opens that letter, and it is from Adam. So you can see the hotel name there at the top, Hotel Brighton. It has a note that says, "If you change your mind, number 5G."
Which is the
Go ahead.
Name of the episode.
Name of the episode. And we also have a photo in the background there that he pulls to the forefront later. But it's a picture of Dawn in a military uniform and a little boy.
It's a clue.
A clue. So we assume that is maybe one of the last times that Adam saw Dick.
And that Dawn or Dick was in the military, which we didn't... Well, we kind of got a hint.
We had a clue.
Yeah, because that guy on the train, he said they served together in the military. So,
yeah.
There you go.
And in that first episode, we see him bring out his Purple Heart.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we know he's been in the military, but this is the first visual that we've seen of that. So.
I think it was funny. I think Peggy was being kind of judgy again, handing in that mail and specifically pointing that out.
Yeah, I didn't open this one.
Yeah.
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 I know that you've got stuff to hide, so I didn't open this one.
It says private.
All right, then we go to Ken and Paul. And
oh, that was her there doing it.
This is interesting. This is an interesting tidbit here that they've thrown into this episode that almost seems that like it's not important, but it kind of is. Paul earlier in no, this is the part where Paul is kind of being a dick to Ken.
Yeah.
or was it earlier that Paul was being a dick to Ken?
No, it was
this.
this.
Well, it was early. He had all the girls around him when he was really, when he ripped up his paper, his copies.
I kind of skipped that earlier because anyway, but Ken and Paul sort of have squabbles throughout the whole episode, and this is a part where Paul comes up to Ken and he's like, sorry I was a dick earlier about your writing, whatever. I didn't realize I was competing with you to be a writer. And Kenny just looks smug and he goes, well, you lost, and just walks away. Yeah. So I just think that's interesting.
Because Paul had been a real jerk earlier.
Exactly.
Well, it's also interesting, just in general, the contrast with how Ken, throughout this whole episode, is talking so calmly and telling everyone about his private life, his secret life, that he's kind of, not really been hiding. He's been working as a writer for a long time. He just didn't care to talk about it. And now he's just telling everyone as calmly as... I'm like, it is so blatantly obvious that he is overacting the calm aspect when any scene when he's telling this story. Because he tells multiple people throughout the episode about his writing career. And he tells it almost like he's bored with it. And so, but then on the flip side of that, we've got Dawn, who has this secret life that is killing him. And he would never be able to talk about. And I think that maybe there were a couple of scenes where Dawn had kind of a surprised look or an amazed look on his face listening to Ken talk about this. And everybody's been kind of amazed hearing Ken talk about this, not because really he got published, but because, I don't know, because he's talking about it, that he's he's so calm about it, and he's just telling everybody his secret, and everybody's like, how do you just talk about secrets so easily?
Yeah, true. Yeah. So earlier when I hit the wrong button, I think I kind of got flustered and I skipped something that is not crucial, but I want to touch on it. So after Dawn receives his mail, he leaves for the day. He's like, I'm leaving. And Peggy's like, okay. And he goes, for the day, you can reach me at home. And she's like, okay. So that was funny. But then Joan comes up to her office or to her desk and they're talking. And Joan makes a statement about how, if you can keep his reputation clean and keep his secrets, whatever, that's his private life. If you can keep all that straight, then you're good as gold. And she's like, that's my job. And then Joan makes the statement, that's why we love them, or that's why we love them or him, I think.
I think that's why we love this job, maybe.
Yeah, Joan says, because she gives Peggy the opportunity to say, oh, I don't love it.
Well, she says, I don't love him. That's what she says.
Yeah.
That's what Peggy says.
Yeah.
I think Joan is making the reference to sort of men in general. That's why we love them. And Peggy looks up at her with this solemn face and she is like, I don't love him. So Laura and I differ in opinion about Peggy. We were talking about this quite a bit the other day when we were watching the episode together. Whether or not she is scandalized, judgmental, jealous, where on the spectrum is she really? And Laura was leaning a little toward jealousy at one point because Laura has the idea that Peggy secretly loves Dawn. I don't feel that way.
I also disagree. Which you can go back a couple of episodes of this podcast and see Laura and I get into it about that if you want to.
And you find more out about Peggy later. She's not cut the same as every other woman in the episode. She's a little bit different.
But not gay.
No, not gay. You would think so, but no.
You would think so, but no.
But that would have been an interesting thought, but she's just a little bit different. She's a little different than the other women. She doesn't want exactly what the other women want. And I think she's looking at Dawn not with judgment, but almost with her interests are piqued. I could live that way.
That's what makes her different from these women. It's not her sexuality. It's that she wants to be successful. She has ambitions that these women don't. These normal 60s women who want to be housewives and find the hunk, the money-making, beautiful man to support them, go to work so you can find a husband so you can quit working and take care of the kids. She wants to be Dawn Draper. She wants his...
Maybe not yet. But she's getting there.
It's cooking.
It's cooking.
I mean, it's definitely cooking, and
1 or 2 more episodes, it's really cooking.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like something that happens way later on. It's kind of the point of her character arc through the whole series is that she wants to be the biggest dog that she can be in the room.
Maybe she will be one day.
Yeah.
All right, so then we cut to Pete and Trudy at home. This table's all set. She's got his meal all prepared, a drink poured, typical, lovely housewife stuff. And let's see, she's got great news. Pete, I've got great news, Peter. What is it? You're gonna get published. I did it. I succeeded.
Yeah.
My meeting with Charlie Fittich went well. Or he says, oh, it sounds like your lunch with Charlie went well. It wasn't lunch. I told you that. And so she's like, you're going to be published. He's like, that is completely swell news.
Yeah.
When? Where? Boys Life magazine. Which is great.
Because, Pete, the little boy from earlier.
With his milk and cookies.
Uh-huh.
Boys Life. And so he is just so
he's
put off.
disgusted. He's like, oh, it'll probably be published on a page opposite an ad for exploding cigars.
And she's like, I thought this was what you wanted. I thought this was a hobby. Why are you so uptight about this? Mm-hmm. And anyway, then she makes the comment about, he says that story was good enough for the New Yorker. And she says, I could have gotten you in the New Yorker. I could have gotten you in the effing Encyclopedia Britannica if I wanted to. And he says,
why didn't you?
Why didn't you? What a sleazeball.
What a jerk.
He was going to sell his wife.
What a jerk.
Uh-huh.
There's
nothing likable about Pete.
Yeah, why do we like Pete?
If she had come home and said, I got you in the New Yorker, but I had to sleep with him, he would have been thrilled.
Uh-huh.
He would have been thrilled.
I don't know. I think that's how selfish he is. He might have been mad, but
who knows? Why didn't you? Oh man! And he
wasn't kidding.
And then that's how she's looking at him at dinner.
Yeah.
What's she dressed as, by the way?
Yeah,
Look at that collar.
It's really kind of tacky. She's usually right on point.
Well, they haven't gotten to their new apartment yet. They're still slumming it a little bit.
Yeah.
She gets really on point later.
Well, so this brings us to my title for the episode, what I would name it, because Ken, everybody was so proud of Ken or excited that he was in The Atlantic, which is a national magazine and still around today, and it's a big deal magazine. And Pete wanted to be in the New Yorker or something equally as good, and he got Boys Life magazine instead. So my title is A Tale of Two Magazines.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
So, next scene, we get Peggy, or gosh, I keep saying Peggy. We get Betty and Dawn at home. So we just had Pete and Trudy having dinner, and now we have Betty and Dawn having dinner again. Dawn from the back.
Yep.
Betty's stunning as usual.
Oh yeah, always.
Look at that. Look at her shirt, her sweater. My God.
Laura loves Betty.
Look at that perfect curl in her hair.
So when he's from the back, I think things are wrong in his head. So he's really contemplating about Adam still. She's just making all sorts of conversation. She says this one line, which I think is so ridiculous and silly. I like your girl Peggy. She's fresh.
So that almost sounded like a commercial. Because she kind of turned toward him. She's fresh.
And then you know what Dawn says? As the driven snow. And so, Betty's trying to be nice, and I like, she doesn't feel threatened by him.
I started to say, do you think Betty was trying to be nice?
No, she wasn't. But really what she was saying is, I like that your secretary is somebody that I don't feel threatened by.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, there is that. But I like that scene. So anyway, and then he makes this, he's sort of
down,
forlorn. And he's like, I might have to go back into the office. I haven't decided yet. Mm-hmm. Then we cut to him in his little home office. And he's pulled out that note again and the picture. And he burns it.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say here, my notes reminded me. Have you ever burned a picture?
Yes.
Have you?
Yes.
I was sure that you were going to say no.
Yes, I have.
Because I can't imagine doing that. have it in me. I can't do it. Like that would be super extreme for me. That would be really telling if you were telling my story. If you saw me burn a picture, I can't take it.
Yes.
Like, who burns a picture?
Then, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Then we get a scene. Dawn pulls a briefcase out from under his desk, puts it on the table, opens it, gets a key, puts it in his desk, opens it, pulls the drawer out, and then we get the Quentin Tarantino shot from above. You're looking from the floor up, so you see the drawer. This is very Quentin Tarantino. This is very ominous to me. You're like, what is in there? What is in there? And what's he doing? So he reaches in, and then the scene breaks. The scene breaks then to him walking down, or excuse me, I think right before this scene, he calls Adam.
Yeah.
He does.
He calls Adam right before this scene, excuse me. And he says, I'm coming over.
Yeah, I'm coming over.
And he's like, I don't even know what you like to drink.
He goes, whatever you've got. But Adam, of course, is super excited. But during this shot here, when Quentin Tarantino shoots like this, it's usually from the trunk, and there's like usually a body in it. You know, something terrible is always happening when something is shot this way. So this is ominous to me personally.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And he reaches in to grab something, and then the scene breaks. So then we cut to Adam's apartment. He comes in. Adam's like, what are you drinking? Yeah, I found this bottle of gin. Somebody left it under a couch. You know, he's just a kid, and he's so excited to see his brother. And Dawn's like, coffee, which I think is weird, but whatever.
Yeah.
So, hold on. I'm trying to find my notes on this. You guys can talk if you want.
Well, he looks like he's up to serious business. I mean, you can tell by his demeanor that he is not there for a social visit or to make up or whatever. You know that he's there for something serious.
And there's shadows all over the place. Dawn's kind of cast in shadow, and they've really gone out of their way to make us wonder what's in this briefcase.
And we still don't know who Dawn is exactly. We don't know what he's capable of. We don't know exactly what he's done. So he sits down. He puts his briefcase beside him.
He keeps looking at it. He's distracted by it.
He's looking down. Adam has his back turned. And then he makes the statement. He goes, so, no more, I can't remember what the woman's name is. That's Adam's mom. But no more her. No more Uncle Mac. No more family. And Adam's like, no, just me. So he's like making sure that Adam's the only one that knows that Dawn's there. He's like trying to pick up the pieces, and he reaches into the briefcase. He grabs something. Yeah, and Adam turns around.
Adam says, "What are you doing?" And we're like, "What is he doing?"
And you're like, "What is?" Adam's like, "What is that?" And you're like, "Oh God, what is it?" Also, I wanted to point out that my Mad Men companion talks about how Matthew Weiner just came off The Sopranos. So you're like, what is this guy? What's about to happen? Is he about to get popped? But no.
Get popped.
But no,
My God.
He puts money down. So it's money.
Yeah, but I guarantee you they mean for you to think that he's going to shoot him.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And so Adam turns around. What are you doing? There's $5,000. 5G. And Adam's like, that's not what I wanted. That's not right. And Dawn's like, Adam, this is $5,000. You can do anything you want. You can go somewhere and make a new life. I've got too much here. I can't risk it. He doesn't go into the details. He doesn't tell Adam exactly what's going on. He's just like, I can't risk it.
And I want you to take this money and leave New York, and I never want to see you again.
I never want to see you again, is what he says. And it's heartbreaking.
And make a new life. And
yeah, it's heartbreaking. And Adam begins to cry. They embrace. You know, at the beginning of the hug, Dawn is a little reluctant. And then he gives in. He puts his mouth, you know, not like his mouth, but his face, like in the fold of Adam's neck there. It's sweet. So Dawn gives in, and it's heartbreaking. It really is. Yeah. That's all I can really say about it. But then he leaves.
Yeah.
So that's really it. But it's just really.
Well, yeah.
sad.
When you dig deep and think about it, I think that he's just super torn in that moment. Mm-hmm. Don is like, I think that he thinks that he's doing the best thing for him at the same time as he's breaking his heart. You know, but he thinks that money's very important and that he's really going to get another chance and that I'm probably no good for him anyway.
Yeah.
I just think, even though he's being selfish too. Yeah. But I think that's the weird ironic tone to the scene. Right.
So then we get to the last scene of the episode. It's again the bedroom scene, which bookends the episode because that's where we began, in the bedroom. Betty says, do you want to go say goodnight to the kids? He's like, no, I just want to go to sleep. And then Betty says, hey, I want to talk to you about something and I don't want you to get mad. And then he's like, he like has this look like, what is it?
Hey, wait, hold that shot. There's a real man in pajamas.
Yeah, that's a real man's pajamas.
Yeah, right.
But I want to say something about those pajamas in just a second. But it's not anything serious. Betty just wants to talk about sort of a summer home and what their summering plans are. So it's nothing serious. But look at those pajamas. Even though they are a more sophisticated pajama, they are striped.
You think?
I think they are striped. And then the last scene of the show, it pans away from the bed. And it looks to me that the shadows here are creating a slatted appearance, like a cage. Not necessarily a jail, but a cage. And he is in striped pajamas. So I'm not saying...
Aren't, like, criminal stripes, aren't they horizontal?
I don't know. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
It's just a visual that I picked up on.
Yeah, that's fine.
I feel like he is a prisoner of his mind, of his...
You're absolutely right
and of his doing.
You're absolutely right about that.
So that's just something...
And I definitely agree with those shadow slats.
Yeah. I just feel like he's caged in and he doesn't really know what to do about it.
Yeah, there would be no other reason but to have those on purpose.
I think so.
Those slats, because that would be something a little crew member would be running around going, you can see the slats, they're going to change the lighting. You can't, if it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they covered perfectly over Don's eyes, over his face there.
Yeah.
Because he's the man of mystery, shrouded in darkness. And in the end of their conversation about their summering plans, Betty says, or Dawn says, I don't think we can buy a house right now. We really don't have that much cash. We're not in trouble, but we don't have as much cash as you think because we know he's given it away. Like, I'm assuming that's their life savings. And I think I looked it up, the inflation calculator, how much that was in today's dollars. It's something like $40,000 or something like that. Something astronomical.
It's like a year's salary.
Yeah. So anyway, he's like, we'll talk about that next year. We'll do that next year. And Betty's relieved because the other option, either they buy a summer house or they go to their parents' summer house. So she's happy that they're going to spend time with her family over the summer. And her line is, the last line of the episode completely is, good because I like seeing my dad. And that's how they end the episode. And I think that Dawn is left thinking, wonder what that's like. To have a family that you want to go see, to have a dad we don't know if Dawn has a dad or not, but Betty's excited about seeing her dad, and Dawn just told his last remaining family member to go to hell, and that's what he's thinking about.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So guys, that is 5G. That's the 5th episode of Mad Men. I hope that you have really enjoyed this. Don't forget, new channel, Fatbird Finds Podcast. This is the first episode that we are posting on this channel in real time. So what that means is the other episodes that are preloaded onto this channel occurred months ago. So we are up to date, current on this channel. So we would love for you to subscribe here.
We plan to stay current.
Yes, we do. We're going to hope to post podcasts on Mondays. So we would love for you to subscribe, like, comment, all the good stuff. Hit the notification bell to be notified when our podcasts go live. Yeah.
And so when you do comment, If you can't think of anything else to comment, then you can rename the episode. You can either choose one that we gave you or come up with your own.
Exactly.
But everybody rename the episode.
Yeah, and as we're growing this channel, any comment will do. So if you just want to give us a smiley face or a thumbs up, we appreciate those too. All right, guys, I hope you have an awesome week. As always, make sure you stay tuned to see what Fatbird finds next, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.